Hi everyone, my name's Sarah. I'm calling from University of Bristol today, and I'm really delighted to be here and see so many of you join us for this talk on successfully navigating overseas job markets. So I just wanted to emphasize that we are talking about overseas job markets today. That could be your home country that you're thinking of returning to, or indeed a third country. I'm not talking today about the UK job market. I did get a couple of questions through on that and on visas and the graduate route specifically. So just to say, it's not yet on the Manchester website, but it will be, I think, tomorrow. There's going to be a talk from Kingsley and Napoli solicitors on the graduate route and visas on the 5th of March. So maybe just make a note to check back tomorrow and book onto that. I hope that's okay. Right, what we're covering today is how to find out about a country's labour market. We're also looking at what employers value in overseas returnees, as opposed to local hires, where to look for jobs, and how to make successful applications. So I hope that's what you were expecting. And I just wanted to get a feel for who is in the room. Could you maybe pop into the questions function, and Nolene will read out to me just a few of your answers, whereabouts in Asia, or more broadly, but I expect most of you, it will be somewhere in Asia, you're thinking of returning to. So any countries, and then Nolene, it would be lovely to just hear what people are saying.
No problem. So we have a few of our students have said Japan, South Korea, Hong Kong, and then New Zealand is and Australia are quite popular. East Asia, Malaysia includes India. So there tends to be quite a lot around New Zealand, China, South Korea, Hong Kong, and Japan.
Great, so a real mix.
A real mix.
Brilliant. Okay, well that's very helpful to know, thank you. And then again here, I've got most of the sectors up, I think, but if yours isn't there, feel free to write into the questions the sector that you're primarily looking at. Again, just so I've got a feel for who's in the room. So either one of these or something more specific if it's not listed.
So what's coming up now is healthcare, business, law, science, HR, consulting, engineering, finance, education, IT. So yeah, those tend to be a mixture as well. So some are mixing in business and science, or things like that. So yeah, it's a great mix.
That's good, fabulous. So that leads me on very nicely to say really the approach of this talk is to give you general strategies, sort of regardless of where you're going back to and regardless of the sector. It's not possible in this sort of 35, 40-minute talk to go into specifics, but I can see that Manchester and Warwick have coordinated an incredible programme with lots of employers from different sectors and different countries. So for specifics, do sign up to those. But I hope the 5 strategies that I'm going to be sharing with you today will be helpful for all of you. So when you're thinking about a country's labour market, what is it that you need to consider? And obviously the performance of the overall economy is a key area, but also how are the sectors that you're interested in doing within that economy? And we know that COVID has affected the whole world in similar and in different ways. So it will really vary by country. New Zealand, for example, might be very different to India, say. So I'll be showing you how you do this in a minute. So that's something you need to find out. Oh, sorry, just clicked ahead. Also look at where are the growth sectors and where are the sort of skills gaps in your home country or the country that you're exploring. What's in demand? Think about what employers are typically targeting returnees, the established employers, but perhaps emerging employers as well. Think about where specifically, what city you might want to be working in. Is there investment going into that city, for example? You'll be wanting to look at typical salaries and wider working conditions, and thinking also about recruitment seasons and how long it might take to secure employment. And you might be weighing all this up against the UK, and I spoke earlier about how you can find out a little bit more about the graduate route and skilled worker visa through that talk on the 5th of March. Right, so let's go to the first strategy, and this is one of my favourites, Chambers of Commerce. Let's just hear, Nolene, let me know, how many of you know a little bit about Chambers of Commerce, and really don't worry if you don't. I think they can be a bit of a hidden secret. So just pop into questions, yes, if you feel like you know about this worldwide network, and no or not sure if you don't know that much.
So far, no. 3 yeses, the majority are no.
That's what I expected. So good. Let me share this secret with you then. So Chambers of Commerce are business membership organisations that exist all over the world. And although I say business membership, and perhaps predominantly their members are, in that corporate world, universities, education institutions are also members, so are charities, non-profits. So it is wider than just business if business isn't, what you're looking at primarily. They can exist at, town, city, country level. But the ones that I think are particularly interesting for you are the bilateral chambers of commerce, because, and I'll give you an example. So you can see here on the screen, the UK-India Business Council. That exists to promote trade between the UK and India. So employers who are members of that business council have a foot in both countries. So you can see if you're an Indian student, for example, who's come to the UK, and you have experience, I'm sure most of you, of working in your home country, but certainly studying and living in your home country. You have experience studying in the UK, and many of you will have UK work experience as well, or be looking for that. You understand two worlds, and you can see how researching employers who have an interest in both those worlds could be useful for you, because they have a reason to value you over and above, a typical UK student or a typical student from India who hasn't had that UK experience. So this is why they're so valuable. They publish lists, most of them, of their members in different sectors, but they also publish a lot of market intelligence. So I've just given a couple of examples here. The Malaysian, Chamber of Commerce. There's a link through here to a digital economy report. So if you're interested in, in digital, you can find out so much information there. And the UK-India Business Council has published at the back end of 2020 a very top level, very interesting report on business success. You can see here, I've just copied out the sectors that they've spoken about. And within that report, they mention certain employers who've been particularly engaged. So yeah, really, really useful. There's a blog post I wrote on how you engage with chambers of commerce, which you can link to. And yes, so I really, encourage you to do that. In fact, how are we doing for time? Yeah, I think we are. If you can, on your phone or on a separate tab, just search up your chamber now. So the way to do this is to put, let's say you're from Indonesia, UK Chamber of Commerce, or you can write business membership, something like that, and just see if you can find the name of the Chamber of Commerce that's relevant to you, and then pop that into the questions. And Nolene, do read out if anyone is doing that. When I've done this before with Bristol students, it can take a little time, but people usually do find them quite quickly. Just whilst you're doing that, I'll just say, technically speaking, business councils are slightly different to chambers of commerce, but it's the same function. Essentially, you're looking for membership organisations that relate to your home country and the UK, whose purpose is to help your potential employers grow.
So far, we've had the British Malaysian Chamber of Commerce, UK India Business Council, doing it for South Korea and UK, Nigeria, UK, NBCC, British Chamber of Commerce in
Brilliant.
China.
Absolutely.
so far.
And that British Chamber of Commerce in China, that's based in Beijing, but they have them in Shanghai, Shenzhen, many cities. Fabulous. Yeah,
and Taipei.
Marvelous, Taipei. So you're finding them. That's excellent. Great. So after today, go and find out a little bit more about what intelligence they can provide you with. A second strategy you can use to find out about your home country's labour market in the sectors you're interested in is looking at the country guides on prospects and target jobs. Now, I would say they're useful, they're fairly top level, and they are written primarily for an expatriate audience. So that's for UK students or graduates going overseas. Now, I know that these events were marketed to all students, so it would be really interesting. Just pop in chat if you are from the UK, just pop yes maybe, because that would be handy for me to know as we go along. Just whilst you're doing that, I will pop onto the next area. Anyone from the UK, do you think, Nolene?
We have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Great.
Out of, we have about 130 students online. So, and a couple of students from the EU as well.
Brilliant. Okay. So the country guides might be particularly useful for you. Now, this is a brilliant way of finding out about overseas labour markets. Don't forget, you have a relationship with your home country university. So this could really vary, but many UK universities offer support for their graduates for 3 years or indeed a lifetime. Find out, and often people are unaware of that actually, so find out if your home country university can support you, either officially or informally. But also have a look at some of the leading university websites in countries that you're interested in. So I just put on here an example of the National University of Singapore, and there's an extract there of some really useful job sites that it directs its students to. So, a lot of information, what I'm trying to say, is readily publicly available to anyone who cares to look. Of course, a lot of universities put some of the more detailed information behind their student sign-on, so you won't be able to access that unless you were from that university and have an existing account. But there is a lot you can just find just through searching. And there's a link there through to a rather good short video that university has produced on job search strategies, including networking. And the reason I particularly like that video is because it's talking about the hidden job market, which we talk a lot about in the UK, but is equally valid around the world. As well as jobs that are advertised, you can create your own opportunity by approaching employers, particularly employers experiencing high growth, to introduce yourself to them and see where that conversation leads. And sometimes that can lead to a job that they've created just for you, or perhaps more often at this stage of your career, it will just mean that you are noticed by them, perhaps alerted to new opportunities as they become advertised, and more likely to get shortlisted and interviewed because you've shown that proactivity. Okay, if you have any questions on any of this as we go, please do pop that in questions, and Nolene is just keeping an eye out to either field them to me as I talk or ask me them at the end. And yeah, I just want to say before I forget, actually, on these links, we can make a PDF of the slides available to you, so you'll be able to click on those links through that PDF. I think, Nolene, should they just contact, what's the best way for students to contact?
We will email all those who have attended the session today with the PDF as an attachment.
Marvellous. Brilliant. And of course, the recordings will be available on Manchester's website. Great. Another way that you can find out about labour markets, perhaps more specifically the ones that you're looking for, is through making best use of your university. I've put on here, for example, Student Circus. Now, not all universities have signed up to that. They might have signed up to different platforms, which I'll talk about in a minute. This is one we use at Bristol, which I think is very good, and it posts jobs in many home countries around the world. and it will be producing job search guides as well for different labour markets. Many universities will be putting on employer webinars. So obviously you've got the series at the moment, but find out what else is going on at your university, or hopefully in time, in-person events. Ask if it's not obvious from your career website, and do have a really good look. Ask your university, what international labour market information do they offer? Do they have fact sheets for different job markets? I know many universities do. If they don't, there are some that are readily available on our AGCAS website. Now, AGCAS is a professional membership body that careers professionals like myself and Nolene are members of, and your careers service staff will be members of that. So you won't be able to access these links actually, but your careers service staff will. So if they don't have their own fact sheets, please say, could you make available the Finding a Job in India and Mainland China and Hong Kong fact sheets? And more that will be uploaded there soon are coming on Southeast Asia and on Africa. Right. Using your alumni networks. I think this is my very favorite strategy, actually. I suspect that most of you have a LinkedIn profile, perhaps not all of you, but we found that increasingly students do, which is brilliant. If you don't have a LinkedIn profile, please do that after today. There's advice on creating one from the Prospects website, which you may be familiar with, at that link. And I'm going to show you how you use it. I've just popped Bristol up here as an example, but obviously you will want to find alumni from your own university. And don't forget, you can look at alumni from your UK university, but also from your home country university, if you're a master's student, I should say. So let's just pretend you're Bristol for now, just as an example. If you click on that LinkedIn link at the top on this slide, you will go to this alumni page, and it shows, this is old actually, we've got over 130,000 alumni now, and your universities will have similar. What you can then do, is search in that little bar. Let's say, what could you search? Counselling, if that's what you're interested in, or engineering, aerospace engineering, or some kind of phrase, or indeed an employer you can search. And I haven't got a slide showing you, but it will bring up a whole page of alumni who have got something to do with that. Then what you do, so let's say you've done that and you find an alumnus, you think, oh, looking at their profile, I can see that they would have a lot of really useful information to share with me. This is what you then do. You go to connect and you always add a note, that's step 2 there. And then you've got 300 characters to explain why you want to connect with them. So in this example, I have got, I am approaching John, let's say. I'm pretending I'm an American student, studying at Bristol, studying engineering and researching the American aerospace sector. And I'm explaining that I'm reaching out because I want to understand that sector a bit better, and specifically his employer's work and culture. So you can see it's really obvious that I'm looking for a conversation. I'm not putting a lot of pressure on John at this stage to find me a job or get me an internship or do something that may not be in his power. I'm just after a conversation. And I've said, brief. And then I press send. And I have to say that maybe even 50% of the time, John won't connect with me, but 50% of the time he will. And then I have that message function on LinkedIn where I can say, oh, thank you so much. Please could you, when is good for you? What about next Thursday? I can set up a Zoom link just for 20 minutes, etc. And then you really ask John for his advice, all your questions about that sector, how you get in, how you could stand out. And of course, if that conversation is going well and John is very helpful, you can say, oh, does your company ever offer virtual internships or that kind of thing. Would you mind looking at my CV? You have to read how that conversation is going. But you start off with this light ask. And just to say, if people don't connect with you, you haven't done anything wrong. It's an appropriate use of LinkedIn. It's kind of what LinkedIn is for, really. You yourselves, once you have your graduate jobs, if you're approached in this way, I'm sure you would be helpful back. So just don't take it personally. It's quite likely John perhaps didn't see your message on LinkedIn, or he saw it but is very busy. Or I always say, maybe John's cat died that morning and he's just not in the mood to help. So don't take it personally, just move on and keep connecting. Okay, any questions on that? Do pop them in chat, and I'll just pause slightly actually to see, because this approach, if you're not familiar with it, can bring up some questions.
So far, I think students are just engaging with, how to make connections. So we've had no questions yet specifically around connecting with employers. So I think what you're sharing, and also telling students to engage with career services, follow social media of these organizations, is absolutely essential. Yeah.
Brilliant. Perfect. Okay, so those were the chief strategies that you can use, so regardless of sector, regardless of country. Now just turning to that bit that we spoke about at the beginning of the aims of what are employers looking for that you want to particularly highlight. Well, the good news is that they're looking for high-ranking universities that you will be you will be at. They're looking for English language proficiency, a lot of them. And that global mindset. Employers all over the world really do value the fact that you have been studying, and in many cases working in the UK. I should say, I know that with COVID, some of you may not have made it to the UK and may be accessing this from your home countries. And we all really feel for this cohort of students. It's really difficult times. You will still be accessing, a UK education system, which is probably very different to your own, interacting with students from all over the world through your academic study, at the very least. So try to sort of think of the positives and highlight the strengths. And, above all else, you have all shown remarkable resilience. And that, again, is, which actually you'll see further down on this slide, so valued by employers. These are not the only graduate skills that are valued, but in many research reports, this is what's highlighted time and again: problem solving, teamwork, communication, adaptability, interpersonal skills, and, as I said, resilience, and also sort of dealing with conflict. What you need to be a little careful for in returning to your home country or wherever you're going is not to have too unrealistic salary expectations. So, of course, you have invested heavily in your UK education, and of course you should be expecting to see a return over time on that. I would just encourage you to think about that as a process, and not try and make back that investment in year one. Many reports, for example, British Council reports that came out in the last couple of years, show that there is often or sometimes a modest salary premium, typically sort of 10 to 20%, but it does really depend. But employers are very turned off by too unrealistic a demand on that salary front. So try and get that balance right. Also, some employers are saying, what we really value in overseas returnees is that additional exposure to English and that enhanced language ability, but we don't always see it. So again, I know it's been so difficult, but please take every opportunity to practice your English if it isn't your native language, and to interact with your peers from all over the world, and really hone that advantage. This last point is slightly less relevant now. We have the graduate route, because that will enable you, if you're graduating from summer 2021, to stay in the UK. So if you are returning to a different job market, that's sort of more obviously a planned choice, rather than just not being able to find sponsorship in the UK. However, just make sure that employers know that you really want to be returning to that country to take up work there. Yeah. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Just wanted to highlight here, you can access this quite useful graduate skills gap report when you get the PDF. It shows around the world what employers are particularly valuing and where they're finding a bit of a gap. So just looking at Asia Pacific, for example, the importance score, let's go down to creativity. That kind of got an 87%. So it was very important to employers in the Asia Pacific region. But I highlighted it because it's one of the biggest, I think possibly the biggest gap. Only 57% was satisfied with the creativity shown by their graduate applicants. So, and creativity is a wonderful skill or strength, that can be relevant across sectors. So think about where you may have developed that and think about how you can show that to stand out.
Sarah, could you expand on what you mean by global mindset? I think some students are a bit, want a bit more expansion on that. What you mean by global mindset?
Okay, that's a really good question. I did skip on that a bit. It's really just, I think, an awareness that we are living in an interdependent world, that almost any job I can think of, but many of the employers that you will be wanting to work for are multinational, that they will have suppliers in different countries around the world, customers in different countries around the world, that you'll need to adapt your communication style to people from different cultures. Different countries, have different ways of doing things, different ways of thinking about things. So just to be, aware of that. Think about with your own interactions, with students on your course from different countries. What have you noticed in how, in their different perceptions, in how they interact and communicate? How have you perhaps had to adapt to accommodate that? Yeah, I hope that makes sense. It's really, really important. Okay, read that report. That will also give you a good idea. Right, again, this has been harder with the pandemic, but all your universities will be really encouraging you to get UK work experience, because that's a way you can stand out. Now, there are many, many virtual opportunities, and I know many of you will have taken up those virtual internships that the Bright Network advertised a few months back, and there's more, I presume virtual, but being announced in May, you can see there. I know at Bristol, we've offered lots of virtual volunteering, part-time work, part-time internships that you can do alongside your visa hour restrictions. And I'm sure your universities will have similar opportunities available. So just don't assume that there's nothing out there. Engage with your career service and ask them, how you can take advantage. And many universities anyway have employability award schemes as well, and they're a really useful way of evidencing what you've done. You can put that award when you get it on your CV, in applications, on your LinkedIn profile. Okay. Right, where do you find these jobs? So I mentioned Student Circus earlier. They do have a 30-day free trial. You can just try as well. The other platform that advertises jobs, in many, many countries around the world, that a lot of universities have signed up to, is Going Global. There's an embedded link in that logo when you get the PDF. GradLink is a free version of those two platforms that was developed by the University of West of England. So, all of you will be able to use GradLink Student Circles and Going Global will depend on whether your university has signed up to it. LinkedIn, we spoke about that earlier, the importance of making connections. Noli mentioned following employers. Often LinkedIn or social media is the first place an employer will announce an opportunity. For China, there's so many platforms. I just mentioned Lock-in, because it's an organisation we've worked with a bit at Bristol, but many, many others. And those country guides I referenced earlier do themselves link a lot of the typical job sites in different countries. So there's quite a few options there. Right, making successful applications. So understand the recruitment cycles for your country, and then practice. So again, this will vary by university, but I know there will be so much support out there for you. Lots of online resources. Many universities will have selection tests that you can practice, and that really is the best way to succeed in those selection tests. Is just practice, practice. They may offer application reviews, so an advisor giving you feedback on your CV or application form before you send it. And they may offer one-to-one interview practice sessions or webinars. Just take up everything that's available. And as I said here, don't forget that hidden job market, applying speculatively. And that process starts with those sort of gentle initial conversations with alumni, ideally, who are working at employers you're interested in, to understand that employer's needs and culture. Let me just say there, actually, it's great to go through alumni networks because they have something in common with you and might be more likely to want to help you, but you don't have to. If there's an employer you really want to work for, just find out who works for them at LinkedIn and approach them cold. And I've done that in previous lives successfully. It's a good strategy. Okay. Application tips. There's a lot of advice for CVs or resumes that works across markets, actually. All employers want you to be concise, to evidence your skills and experience, to highlight what you've gained from your UK education. But then there are some subtle differences as well. So in many of the markets you'll be returning to, a photo might be requested or desirable. So get the advice of the alumni perhaps that you're working for, read those fact sheets that I referenced earlier to find out as well. Oops. And then use your UK career service to get feedback on your CV, even if it's for an overseas market. Just say to your advisor, I'm using this for this market, and if necessary, they can do a bit of homework and ensure that they are giving you good advice. It's always worth quality rather than quantity. I know it's so tempting to apply to many, many roles because it can feel like you're increasing your chances. But actually, I'm sure Noli would back me up on this. The #1 feedback that I and my colleagues give to students who send us applications or CVs for comment is tailor more. So it's better to focus on fewer employers and really, really tailor. Show that you understand who you're applying to and how what you have to offer really matches that. Okay.
No, I agree. And the job adverts, they tend to be very specific around the skills that they're looking for. Not so much experience at graduate level, because they understand many don't have it, but skills that you can evidence with your coursework, with societies, sports teams.
Yes.
Basically any other activities you've been getting involved in where you can evidence using those skills. We have had a question through, if you could expand on what you mean by the hidden job market.
Sorry, Noli, could you just say that again?
Expand what you mean by the hidden job market.
Oh, okay, yeah. So that's jobs that aren't advertised, okay? And I think students and people, anyone, we often ignore that job market because, again, it feels like will be more successful applying to something that's been advertised. And I really understand that. But even at graduate level, there are jobs out there that you can create for yourself. And you do that through networking, which is just having conversations with people. And this is particularly true, I would say, for small or medium-sized enterprises, who may be growing fast, who might not have such formal processes. So it's not going to work really for organizations like EY, or Rolls-Royce. They will have their formal systems. Although please do have conversations with employees at those organizations to get the inside knowledge. So it's perhaps more useful for the smaller companies that can still be very large. So have conversations with people that work there, find out what their needs are, demonstrate how you can meet those needs, and then write to the appropriate person at that organization to introduce yourself with a CV and a cover letter, and ask if you can have a conversation about opportunities there. So what can often happen is you talk first with an alumnus who might be doing a role that you're particularly interested in, but they might not be the right person to address that speculative application to. But they are the right person to tell you who to address it to. So I hope that makes sense. Yeah. Does that make sense?
It does. And just another point around applying for roles in a country where you don't speak the language. I'm not sure what your take on this is, Sarah, but I would say if the advert has been advertised in another language and the application is in another language, they will expect you to have the language. I think it's very unlikely that if you don't have business level ability in that language, that you would be shortlisted.
I think that's right. And that's different to the possibility of getting a job in another country without speaking the language. That possibility still exists. But I think, as Nolene has said, if the job ad is in the native language, it's likely that they're not looking to sponsor. They want a native speaker.
Yeah, many companies will advertise internships and graduate opportunities in English if they're looking to hire internationally, and they do that quite regularly. It's if the information is not in English, then I would.
Yeah, and if in any doubt, I always say, don't be afraid to get in touch with HR or whoever's posted and just say, look, this is my circumstances. Would you welcome an application from me? Because you don't want to waste your time. So yeah. Okay. Few just interview tips. As you would for the UK, really research that employer and that industry. Ensure that you've prepared answers that evidence your skill, all of the skills that they've asked for in the person's specification. But I would say, depending perhaps on what you're going for, in addition, think about problem solving, teamwork, communication, adaptability. I suspect most of these will come up anyway in the person spec, but if they don't, do spend some time thinking about them, because we do know that globally employers value this, and it is something that you are well placed to evidence from your studies in the UK. Have some questions prepared, dress smartly, practice. Okay, so some universities have sort of interview simulator tools. I do apologise for my dog. Interview simulator tools where you can record your answers and play yourself back and things like that. But just practice as much as you can. Right, how are we doing? I'm going to wrap up in the next couple of minutes. I just want to flick through some advice from alumni. I'm also going to let my dog out. 1 second. There we go. I'm demonstrating resilience. That's what I always say when this happens. In our working from home life. Okay, advice from alumni really quickly. Actually, I won't go through this because I want to leave time for questions, and I know we need to finish about 1:45. But I'm just showing you, we've got Chungjia from China, Abir, India, Max from Hong Kong, Marcia working in Lebanon, Azim working in India, and basically this is what they say. We've kind of touched on it. Make the most of your UK experience as much as you can. Get on LinkedIn and use it. Take additional certifications. That's something you can always do. There's lots of short-term online courses around at the moment. And then put on LinkedIn that you've done it. Positions of responsibility, involvement in societies like Novi mentioned. Perfect. So any outstanding questions, I would be delighted to take them.
One has come in around when attending online fairs where you have multiple employers and you might be asked to upload your CV to a specific platform where you've created a profile. How can you make that CV tailored? I've answered this in a way that just basically says research. You will, if you're attending something online, you normally will have access to who's attending in terms of organization, but also what vacancies are available. And it's researching those and seeing are there themes in terms of skills cross employer that you can reference and evidence in your CV.
Absolutely. I think that's all you can do. And also don't feel like you need to be attractive to every employer on that platform. So research and then target and think, okay, well, actually, I'm only interested in 3 of those employers. So I'm going to look at the themes across those 3, you know, and make my CV as good as possible for them. So yeah, I think targeting and tailoring is a key message to take from today.
Okay, fantastic. So in terms of working overseas and visas, what is your advice in terms of looking for opportunities overseas when visas are involved?
Okay, so I think go to the embassies of the countries that you're interested in your home country. So say you wanted to work in China, go and look on the Chinese embassy website in the UK to understand visas. Actually, those country guides might be an easier first place to go. The prospects and target country guides, because they do cover visas a little bit. But then, because those can sometimes be a little out of date, check with the embassies. But also those chambers of commerce, you know, are useful sources of information there. Don't be afraid to get in touch with, to carry on with that China example, the British Chamber of Commerce in the UK, and just say, you know, I'm thinking of coming over. Could you, I think this is the visa situation, having looked at the Chinese embassy, can you just clarify for me if that is the case? And yeah, try and speak to people working for chambers of commerce and get their advice as well. You know, use that approach.
I would say as well that wherever you're going or plan to go, do research the visa opportunities thoroughly, because every country is completely different, and there may be ways of finding work experience and visas that apply to you. So there's normally not one visa that fits all approach. So do see what the visa options are. And if an employer is advertising a role internationally, there is usually information that they will help you with on visas, because they understand that there will be a visa aspect to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think this is from a UK student, and it's around, you know, in the UK, Sarah, that a lot of our internships are aimed at second year students or penultimate year students. I feel, and I don't know about you, but I feel that that's a very UK centric thing, that many other areas of the world do actually target first years for internship opportunities.
Yeah, I think it just does really depend, and just ask. And you know, if in any doubt, as I said before, get in touch and ask before you spend a lot of time on it. Often it will say, actually, you know, on the ad, you know, kind of who they're targeting it at. But I think always ask. Try not to be a number. Okay, I know for many of these opportunities that, you know, it can be hundreds of people applying, but try to become a known person and a known quantity. don't pester, but it's a perfectly valid question to ask of HR. Can I just check that I'm eligible?
Okay, and for those of you who are wondering around UK and visas, there is a UK visa session happening on the 5th of March, 12 noon till 1 p.m. So if you are interested in working in the UK and you're an international student, the session will be on the website, the ACIS website or Asia Careers Insight Series website from tomorrow afternoon, and you'll be able to sign up to that session and it will talk about visa options in the UK. But Sarah's session today is not focused on the UK, it's focused for overseas markets. Just to clarify, Sarah, because we've had a few of those questions.
Okay.
So what about overseas students being able to mention different online courses? Do we mention this on our CV and our LinkedIn? And do you feel it's important for us to have our LinkedIn profile in 2 languages? So our native language and the language of the country that we're planning on going to?
If the course that you've done is relevant, yes, I would put it in both places. I mean, LinkedIn, I suppose you're tailoring that less because it has to have some longevity. So yeah, I would always put on LinkedIn. There's a little section where you can show things like that. And then yes, include it in your CV if it's relevant to the role and employer that you're applying to. The 2 languages, that's a really good question actually. Yes, you can do that. I think English, I don't know, Nolene, tell me what you think. I think it depends a bit on your market, but English is, very universal in kind of the global employment market. So I think certainly do have it in English because that shows, one of the things that helps make you stand out from domestic peers. And then I think it would just depend. Yeah, so for China, I think, perhaps in Chinese as well, but other markets, it just might depend. I don't know, have you got any thoughts there, Nolene?
I think if your native language is not English, then certainly have a profile in the language of the country that you're from, because that can really help. And if you are looking at working in an English-speaking country, then yes, have an English-speaking. If you're looking at having a profile in another language that you don't speak, then that would be a struggle because the kinds of interactions you will get will be in that language.
Oh yeah,
so people will be engaging with you in that language, and so if you can't speak that language, you're almost setting yourself up for very awkward conversations. Yes. So I really wouldn't be using any profiles in a language you are not completely fluent in.
Yeah, and just to emphasize on that English profile again, I think yes, I think almost regardless I would have an English profile because with life it's just and work, I think it's really important to understand the value of people and to be a valuable person yourself back to others and to offer and be part of a professional network. So having invested in some UK education, have that side to yourself now ongoing, forever, and that's a brilliant way. LinkedIn is such a great way for you to keep in touch with people that you've met on your course, with employers you may have worked for. Maybe you don't want to work in the UK right now, or the States, Australia, or another, language that's, country that's particularly using English, but you might in the future. So just keep in touch with people in a light touch way. Yeah, and as I said, please offer your support back when you're approached in turn. I feel like LinkedIn should pay me.
I know, I'm the same. And we did have a great LinkedIn session yesterday that was delivered by Chris Barnes from Cardiff University. So if you're interested in that, he gives some great tips, and I think he broke it down into a 7-step process. So that recording will be available on the Asia Careers Insight Series website, which you've all received in emails, which you've all used to find out about all the sessions. So just go on that website and check out the recordings. But that was a really good kind of session dedicated to LinkedIn. So if you're unsure, he does talk about some great insights and tips. So check that out. Okay, so that's it. We've not had any more questions. We've really put you through the works today, Sarah, on asking every question. I would probably say, based on the themes of questions we've had today, if you're unsure about job search strategy and you're a little bit overwhelmed, engage with your career service and make an appointment and speak to a career consultant who can help you navigate the best way to prepare a job search plan going forward. And will also help as well to go through the different tools we've spoken about today and how best to utilize them for your specific circumstances. Okay. Well, thanks, Sarah. That was a great session. This has been recorded. As I said, it'll be available on the Asia Careers Insight Series website. And we look forward to seeing you at many more of these sessions that will be happening in the coming weeks. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you so much. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.